Raiders fans, buckle up because I've got a lot to get off my chest today. Let me start with something small before we dive into the storm. Yesterday, the team tried out a couple of players, linebacker Luke Masterson and defensive back Shamar Bartholomew. Now, let's be real here. These aren't moves that are going to completely change the outlook of this roster. These are the types of additions you usually see to bolster depth or maybe give a little extra juice to special teams. It's the sort of business that happens week in and week out in the NFL, so nothing earth-shattering there. But I wanted to put that on the table so nobody thinks I ignored it. That's not where my frustration lies. Where my frustration really begins is with the offensive line. And I can already hear some of you sighing because, yes, this is the exact same issue we've been talking about for what feels like forever. The Raiders' offensive line has been flat-out bad, and not just your average bad. It's been historically terrible. When a question came up about possibly sliding Jackson Powers-Johnson into the center spot, the response from the coach was as cold and as dismissive as you can imagine. Absolutely not. And that's when my blood started to boil. Because here's the thing. Last season, we actually saw a lineup that, while not perfect, was far better than what we're seeing now. We had Colton Miller anchoring the left tackle position, Jordan Meredith lining up at left guard, JPJ snapping the football, Dylan Parham at right guard, and DJ Glaze at right tackle. That unit wasn't elite, but it was stable enough to give the offense a chance. It was at least functioning at an average level. And in today's league, sometimes average is enough to compete. But now, instead of repeating what worked, it feels like the coaching staff is stuck in some sort of stubborn ego trip, refusing to acknowledge what's staring them right in the face. The part that really gets me is the dismissiveness. When the question was asked, the answer wasn't thoughtful or analytical. It wasn't about weighing options or saying, we'll evaluate. It was just a flat-out no. And when a coach answers with that kind of emotion, it raises red flags. It makes me wonder if there's more to the story. Is there something going on behind the scenes with JPJ? Is there some dynamic we're not aware of that's influencing these decisions? Because the way the answer came across, it didn't feel like football reasoning. It felt personal. It felt emotional. And that worries me. Meanwhile, we're out here watching the worst offensive line in the entire National Football League. The numbers don't lie. At the pace this group is on, they're projected to allow 68 sacks this season. Think about that. 68. That would be the most in Raiders history since 1967, when a line gave up 67. That's over half a century ago, and we're looking at breaking that record in the worst way possible. And if you think the pass protection is ugly, the run blocking is even worse. It is a complete and total disaster. And what do we hear from the staff? We hear stubbornness. We hear excuses. We hear an unwillingness to make adjustments. That's why the absolutely not set me off. Because this isn't a situation where things are just fine and you don't want to mess with continuity. This isn't a case of, let's be patient and see how it plays out. No, this is a raging fire. This is a house burning down. And instead of grabbing a hose, we're arguing about whether the hose should be red or blue. The refusal to even consider moving JPJ into center, where we've already seen it work, just feels like negligence. And then you listen to the explanations coming out of the building, and it gets even worse. We keep hearing about competition at right guard. Right guard this, right guard that. Alex Kappa versus Jackson Powers-Johnson. Fine. But why is that the only position up for grabs? Why is right guard the only battle? Why is it that Dylan Parham isn't competing for his spot? He has clearly regressed this year. Why is Jordan Meredith safe when he's also fallen off? Why is DJ Glaze still holding down right tackle when his performance has dipped massively compared to last season? The way it's being handled makes no sense. If competition is the theme, then competition should apply to everyone struggling. But instead, it feels like there's a vendetta against one player. And that is what makes me uneasy. The more I think about it, the more it feels like something bigger is going on here. And it's not just me saying this. Families of Raiders players, people close enough to know what's being discussed at home, are engaging with posts and content questioning the staff's decisions, especially regarding JPJ and offensive line coach Brennan Carroll. That tells me these conversations aren't limited to fans on Twitter or YouTube. They're happening inside households of players. That doesn't happen unless frustration is real and widespread. And honestly, I can't even blame JPJ if this whole situation is messing with him mentally. Imagine being a young player, knowing that statistically you performed better in that role, knowing you could help stabilize this unit, but instead being sidelined by what feels like politics. That's brutal, and it eats away at confidence. It eats away at the locker room too, because guys talk. Guys notice when decisions don't add up. What scares me even more is the vibe coming from Pete Carroll right now. And let me be clear, I'm not saying he is Josh McDaniels, but the stubbornness, the contradictions, the refusal to adapt, it's giving off McDaniels vibes, and that's not something any Raiders fan wants to relive. When McDaniels was here, he had this attitude that he could just walk in, sprinkle his magic, and everything would fix itself. He ignored the cracks in the roster. He acted like his scheme and his people were untouchable. And we all know how that ended. It was a disaster, and when he was finally fired, it felt like the entire fan base could breathe again. It felt like a weight was lifted, like we were finally free from drowning. So when I hear Carroll giving answers that don't line up with reality, when I see him digging in instead of adapting, I can't help but feel nervous. Because it's not just about one season. This is about the plan for the future. This is about developing young linemen like Caleb Rogers and Charles Grant, guys who were drafted in the 3rd round. Do I have faith that Brennan Carroll is the guy to mold them into long-term solutions? No, I don't. If we can't even get the basics right with the veterans we have, how are we supposed to trust the development pipeline? And that's why this feels like driving in the wrong direction. Imagine someone on the highway, completely lost, and you hand them a map. Instead of looking at it, they toss it aside and say absolutely not. That's the vibe we're getting right now. And the longer we keep going down this road, the more damage it's going to do. Not just to this season, but to the foundation of what we're trying to build. The more I think about this whole situation, the more frustrated I get because it's not just about one bad answer in a press conference or one stubborn decision on the depth chart. It's about a pattern that is starting to reveal itself. And when you're a Raiders fan, patterns are everything. We've lived through the highs and the crushing lows, and we know when something doesn't feel right. Right now, this doesn't feel right. Let's go back to what Pete Carroll actually said, because words matter. When asked about shuffling the offensive line the way it was last year, his explanation was that they've invested a lot of time with these guys playing their current spots. That was his exact reasoning. Think about that for a second. So, we've invested a lot of time, and therefore we're going to stick with it. Even if it's failing? That's not coaching. That's stubbornness disguised as strategy. That's like doubling down on a bad hand in poker because you've already thrown chips into the pot. It makes no sense. The NFL isn't about sunk cost. It's about results. And then, in almost the same breath, Carroll also said they're still learning the roster. Do you see the contradiction here? On one hand, he's telling us they've invested all this time in certain players at certain spots. But on the other hand, he's admitting they're still learning who fits where. Which is it? If you're still learning, why not try new combinations? Why not experiment? Especially when the current lineup is producing historically bad numbers. If you really are still evaluating, then evaluate. Don't pretend the decisions are locked in stone when every piece of evidence says they shouldn't be. That contradiction right there is what's giving me those McDaniels flashbacks. Remember those press conferences where you'd hear things that sounded nice, but made no sense when you actually looked at what was happening on the field? That's exactly how this feels. It's like we're being fed lines, but when you peel them back, there's nothing underneath. And as fans, we're not dumb. We can see through it. We watch the games. We know what the offensive line looks like. We know the numbers. You can't sell us on the idea that everything is fine or that continuity is the reason to keep a failing unit together. What's worse is the ripple effect. When the offensive line is this bad, it poisons everything else. The quarterback can't get comfortable. The run game has no chance. The receivers don't get time to finish their routes. The defense ends up on the field too much because the offense can't sustain drives. It becomes a cycle, and it all starts up front. That's why this isn't just a minor issue to nitpick. This is the heart of the problem, and it's being ignored. And let me just say, it's not lost on me how hard it is for players too. Think about Jackson Powers Johnson. This is a young guy who came into the league with hype, who has shown he can handle himself at center, and yet he's being boxed into a fight for a guard spot that doesn't make sense. Imagine the mental toll that takes. You're essentially being told, yeah, you were good at that other job, but we don't trust you there anymore. That wears on a player. That creates doubt. And in a sport where confidence is everything, stripping a guy of that confidence for no logical reason can derail a career before it even starts. And it's not just JPJ. It's everyone. When players see decisions that don't make sense, they start questioning the system. They start questioning the staff. They start talking among themselves, and that's how cracks form in the locker room. You can't tell me these guys don't know what's going on. You can't tell me they're not aware that their line is a mess and that solutions are being ignored. And when families of players are liking posts and content that criticize the coaching staff, that tells you something. That tells you these conversations are happening behind closed doors. That tells you the frustration isn't just in the fan base, it's inside the team environment too. Now here's where it gets even scarier. If Carroll and Brennan Carroll keep doubling down on this approach, what happens to the young linemen we drafted? What happens to Caleb Rogers and Charles Grant? These are third-round picks, investments for the future. But how do we trust this staff to develop them when we're already watching regression across the board? Dylan Parham has gone backwards. Jordan Meredith has gone backwards. DJ Glaze has gone backwards. What makes anyone believe the rookies won't follow the same path if the coaching doesn't change? That's what keeps me up at night. Because this isn't just about protecting the quarterback today, it's about whether we're sabotaging the foundation for the next 5 years. And the worst part is, Carroll doesn't even seem open to outside input. The vibe he's giving off is the vibe of someone who's decided he's right no matter what. It's the classic driving the wrong way down the road and refusing to look at a map scenario. And Raiders fans, we've seen this movie before. We know how it ends. It ends with wasted seasons, wasted talent, and eventually wasted patience. And I don't know about you, but my patience is already wearing thin. This isn't me saying Pete Carroll is finished. He's proven he can lead. He's proven he can win. I want to believe in him. I still believe he has the ability to turn things around. But right now, the words and the actions aren't matching up, and that's the kind of thing that sends alarm bells ringing for every single one of us. Because as much as I want to buy into the long-term plan, as much as I want to trust that this regime knows what it's doing, I can't ignore what's right in front of me. And what's right in front of me is an offensive line on pace for a historically embarrassing season, with a coaching staff acting like everything is fine. So Raiders Nation, this is where we're at. A historically bad line, a staff doubling down on their mistakes, a locker room that can't possibly be blind to it, and a fan base that's boiling over with frustration. This is the reality. And unless something changes, unless someone swallows their pride and admits adjustments are needed, we're heading straight for the iceberg with no lifeboats in sight. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on our Las Vegas Raiders. And don't be shy. Drop your thoughts on the news in the comments below. In what could be the most shocking shakeup of the NFL offseason, whispers around the league have become a roar. The Las Vegas Raiders are reportedly closing in on a blockbuster deal for Buffalo Bills quarterback Josh Allen. If true, this move would instantly send seismic waves across the league, rewriting the quarterback landscape and leaving fans everywhere scrambling to recalibrate their expectations. Sources close to the situation, speaking under the cloak of anonymity, hint that the Raiders have been quietly but aggressively pursuing Allen for months. While the Bills' front office has remained tight-lipped, insiders suggest that talks have escalated to a point where a trade could be imminent. The mere idea of Allen leaving Buffalo, a franchise he has essentially carried on his back, feels almost surreal. Yet, the Raiders' hunger for a transformational star quarterback appears insatiable, and Allen's combination of arm strength, mobility, and leadership makes him a perfect fit for their ambitious vision. The potential ripple effects are enormous. Las Vegas, long a franchise known for flashes of promise rather than consistent dominance, could suddenly leap into contention in a loaded AFC West. Meanwhile, the Bills would be left scrambling for a Plan B, or even C, at the most critical position in football. Fans on social media have already exploded with speculation, memes, and hot takes, debating whether this is the dawn of a new Raiders dynasty or a high-stakes gamble that could backfire spectacularly. League insiders suggest that contract details are the sticking point, with Allen's current deal complicated enough to require careful navigation to satisfy both teams and player. Yet, the very fact that the Raiders are seriously considering such a seismic move speaks volumes about their ambitions and their willingness to shake up the status quo. As of now, nothing is confirmed, and both sides have declined comment, fueling the frenzy even further. One thing, however, seems certain. If Josh Allen does indeed trade silver and black for a new home in Las Vegas, the NFL landscape will never look the same again. Fans will be glued to every report, every cryptic social media post, every subtle hint, waiting for the moment this rumored blockbuster either becomes reality or fizzles into another what-if story. The rumor mill is alive, the speculation is running wild, and the Raiders may be on the verge of pulling off the most audacious move in recent NFL memory. Could Josh Allen in Vegas really happen? Only time will tell, but the buzz alone is already electric. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay updated with exclusive news about our Las Vegas Raiders, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. We can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.